Welcome. I'm Lonnie Skrentner, the president of the League of Women Voters of Edina. This is a candidate forum for Independent School District number 273, Edina Public Schools School Board. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan volunteer organization that encourages citizen participation in government. The League does studies and takes stands on issues, and we advocate for change. The League does not endorse any political candidates or any political party. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, not those of the League of Women Voters. And the League sponsorship of this forum is not an endorsement of any candidate. There are at least 2 more forums, and this forum will be available on video on the city website, on the League of Women Voters of Edina website, and it will be rebroadcast on the schedule that was placed on your chairs on local cable channel 16. There are 2 other forums. One on October the 12th from 9:30 to 12 in the Edina Community Center, sponsored by the Edina Parent Leadership. That will be on the 3rd floor of the Edina Community Center. And there is a 3rd forum sponsored by the Morningside Neighborhood Association on October 11th from 4 to 5 p.m. at Weber Park. I would like to introduce our moderator for the night. We feel privileged to have Judy Duffy with us. She is a member of the White Bear Lake Local League. She is a past member and vice president of the National Board of the League of Women Voters and a past state president of the League of Women Voters of Minnesota. Judy?
Okay, thank you, and good evening. Before we get started, I'm going to ask each of you to take out your cell phone and turn it off. Thank you. The purpose of this evening's forum is to provide an opportunity to hear the candidates discuss issues that are important to you. We will try to cover as many issues as possible in the time that we have. If your questions are not addressed tonight, please feel free to candidate the candidates directly. All candidates who filed for office and who will be on the November 3rd ballot were invited to this forum. I'd now like to explain the rules and format of tonight's forum. The speaking order was assigned before the forum and will rotate with each question. Each candidate will have 1 minute to make an opening statement and 1.5 minutes to answer a question that was sent to them in advance. Candidates will then have 1 minute to answer each question submitted by the audience and 1 minute to make a closing statement. This forum will also include a lightning round. Each candidate will be asked a different question drawn at random and be asked to give a brief 1-sentence, and I repeat, 1-sentence answer. A League volunteer will time candidate responses and indicate to candidates when they have 30 and 15 seconds and the time remaining when they must stop. Audience questions must be in writing and handed to a volunteer who is wearing a League button. The moderator will ask all questions. The League of Women Voters of Edina determines which questions will be asked and attempts in good faith to cover the topics of interest indicated by the submitted audience questions. All written questions become the property of the Edina League. This forum is being videotaped by the City of Edina. Please hold your applause until the end of the forum. I would like to introduce to you the candidates for the school board election in alphabetical order. Melanie Allen, Leila Avila, Claudia Carr, Kathy Sella, Amir Garbi, Sarah Patzloff, Lenny Wallen-Friedman. We will start with the opening remarks for the candidates. I have a opening statement from Melanie Allen, who is not here. and this is what she has sent ahead of time. Melanie asked me to extend a warm howdy and deep apology for her absence. She has provided the following introduction and asked that I read it for her. Melanie is a native Texan from the small town of Tyler, Texas. Melanie holds a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry from Texas A&M University, Gig'em Aggies, and earned a Master of Science in Environmental Health Science from the University of Alabama. Roll Tide. Melanie is a highly credentialed environmental health and safety professional holding all 3 EHS professional certifications: Certified Industrial Hygienist, Certified Safety Professional, and Registered Environmental Health Specialist. Melanie owns and operates an EHS management consulting firm, Safety Skill Builders, LLC. Over her 20-plus year EHS career, Melanie has been responsible for designing regulatory compliance strategies and auditing their effectiveness. Melanie also owns and operates Welcome Matters, LLC, where she and her Welcome team connect new Minnesotans with people services and information they will need to make Minneapolis-St. Paul feel more like home. Melanie is married to Calvin Allen. Melanie and Calvin moved to Edina in 2009. They have 2 children. Noelle, who is 6.5 years old, attends Highland Elementary in 1st grade and participates in the CP program. Time is up. The next person is, Sarah Patzlav. Opening remarks, please.
Hello, I am Sarah. Hi, I'm Sarah Patzlav, and I would like to first thank the League of Women Voters for bringing us together tonight to sponsor this event. And I wanted to run 4 years ago because of my passion for our schools and our kids and the importance of a strong education in building a strong community. And now that I'm running for re-election, those reasons really haven't changed. I care deeply about making sure we are delivering the best education we can for our children. And that's why I want to continue to be an advocate for students and parents and the community we serve. On a more personal note, my husband and I have lived in Edina for 15 years with our 2 children, an 8th grader at Southview Middle School and our son at Highlands Elementary in 5th grade. In my professional life, I worked in advertising for 12 years, but I've had the pleasure the last 12 years of staying home and raising our children. I've been an active volunteer in the school community from district-wide organizations down to the classroom. And I hope tonight to continue to prove to you why you should re-elect me for school board. Thank you.
Thank you. Amir Garbi.
Well, thank you. And I want to say thank you to the League for hosting this forum. It's wonderful, and it's a fantastic way for the community to maintain its engagement. You know, it's one of the greatest assets that our public schools have here in Edina, is a community that cares so much. My background is actually from the military. I graduated from West Point and then served 8 years in the Army as an officer and a helicopter pilot, and then used my GI Bill to earn a master in public policy at Harvard and work on mental health reform here in our state. I'm actually becoming a teacher now. I'll teach high school science, and I have 3 kids in our district, so I'm passionate about education and committed to providing excellence for our students. And we have quite a responsibility here as a board, with Edina having just passed a very large referendum, 125 million. And I believe that my background, both with executive policy and executive leadership, as well as what I know about education, would help me guide us forward cautiously and do what's best for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Lenny Wallen-Friedman.
Thank you. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum, as well as the public for attending and watching. I'm running for re-election to the Edina School Board because I care about education. I have the skills to make a contribution, and I believe strongly in giving back to the community. I also now have 4 years' experience on the board, and that's the kind of experience that we need going forward. My wife and I moved to Edina 22 years ago. We have 3 children. 2 of them have already graduated from Edina High School. Another is in 7th grade at Valley View Middle School. Professionally, I'm an attorney. My job involves analyzing, problem solving, learning, and advising. Within Edina, I'm an incurable volunteer. I've coached so many sports I could make quilts out of all the jerseys I have at home. I've also been a treasurer for Cub Scouts, Daisies, PTO. I volunteered for 10 years with the school district. I have the passion, experience, commitment to serve on the Edina School Board, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you. Kathy Sella.
Hi, I'm running for re-election to the Edina School Board for the same reason I ran 4 years ago and the same reason I first ran 8 years ago. I am passionate about education. I believe that an excellent education is the most important benefit a community gives to its citizens. I have a broad and deep knowledge of our Edina schools. With 4 children, I had at least one child in the Edina Public Schools for 24 continuous years. I volunteered in the district at all levels and at many capacities, from kindergarten welcome night to the senior party. I've chaired site councils at both Countryside and Valley View and served as president of the parent council at the high school. And even though my children have all graduated, I still volunteer in the schools. I'm also an active member of the wider Edina community. And with 17 years as a practicing attorney and many years of service on nonprofit boards, I have the skills our school board needs. I've spent the last 8 years using those skills and my experience, working hard to keep us financially healthy, fiscally responsible, while at the same time charting a strategic course for the next generation of Edina schools. I'm excited and eager to continue that work. Thank you.
Thank you. Leila Avila.
Hi, my name's Leila Avila. I wanted to thank the League for hosting this event. I'm here because I want to give back to the community that gave me so many opportunities. In 1979, my family immigrated to the United States from Iran and moved to the Minnesota and specifically to Edina for the quality of the public schools. It was there that I began my journey as a first grader at Creek Valley Elementary. I went on to college, law school, and eventually, like many do, moved back here so that my kids could be afforded the same opportunities that I had. I have 3 children at Highlands Elementary. I am an avid volunteer. I am on the Health and Wellness Committee in Edina. I'm a corporate attorney who has 13 years of relevant experience. I have global perspective, and I really look forward for the privilege of serving this district and giving back.
Thank you. Claudia Carr.
Well, you know, when I told my kids I was running for school board, they said, "Yeah, Mom, get rid of homework." Well, I can't make that promise, but I will promise that I will be a strong advocate for you. Superintendent Dressen has done an outstanding job of creating a vision for next generation learning. Now is the time to enhance that vision. And to do that, the board needs to do 3 things. First, invest in our teachers. We've put the money aside for infrastructure. Now we need to invest in teachers. Secondly, we need to promote physical activities in our schools. Our kids, active kids are healthier, they test better, but you know what, FIAD and recess aren't enough. We need to incorporate movement into classes, have active breaks. Thirdly, global competition. Your kids are going to be competing with students from the best schools in the world, and we need to compare ourselves to those schools. So in short, my focus is going to be on educating for the future in collaboration with district staff and with you. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to the question that has been sent out in advance for the candidates to respond to. The question is, the district passed a major capital bond referendum this past May. What do you see as priorities for updating our facilities and the impact of those updates on 21st century education? We'll begin with Amir Garbi.
Thank you. The referendum was passed in May, $125 million. This is something that will affect our district for decades to come, and not something we should rush into spending. As you can tell from the question, it's still a very open prospect as to where this money will go. In my opinion, all of our buildings are important. We need to focus on all 10 of our structures and not just on 1 or 2 big ideas that someone thinks might be a legacy for where we're going. For example, this move from a 10 through 12 high school where students kind of all know each other in a high school and see each other to a 9 through 12 building is going to take up a huge portion, the biggest, of this chunk. And it gets to what some of the candidates have talked about, comparing ourselves to what our neighbors are doing. But I think we should compare ourselves to our own goals and our own standards of excellence. Make sure we're doing what works. And it's not just the high school that needs attention. I don't know if any of you have seen what the middle school bathrooms look like, but also the elementary schools and our long-term prospects for giving teachers the spaces they need. And really, teachers are the ones who can best tell us what they need to help teach students. Some will want spaces for their volunteers. Some will want spaces for students to work independently. There's not going to be a one-size-fits-all on this, and it's not something that we should decide in this year alone and let the rest of the decade just deal with it.
Okay, thank you. Lenny Wallen-Friedman.
The work that we're going to be completed is dictated by the proposal that we made as a district to the Minnesota Department of Education. That proposal focused a lot on flexible space in every one of our schools. Within that parameter, there is no one priority. We have needs at every single one of our schools. For example, we need to improve security. That's not going to make a huge change in how education is provided, but it is a necessary part of what we're looking for. We need to improve our academic spaces. So our classrooms use the old model of education, but we don't have a classroom today where everybody goes every day, every single time. We have, for example, we've got flipped classes over at the high school, but while we have flipped classes, we don't have spaces that accommodate a flipped class. So we need at the high school to start to build a flexible space to meet the needs of our students. Personalized learning might also include choosing options for where students want to be. We'll need to have space for the students to go. At the same time, we need to improve our spaces at the elementary school. The elementary schools provide the foundation for our kids for the remainder of their education. With flexible spaces, our teachers are going to be able to work either in large groups, large groups with breakout sessions. The key thing is that we need to have spaces that are dynamic. We need to have spaces that can change as the programs change. We don't want to get locked into a set space. Thank you.
Thank you. Claudia Carr.
Well, the plan focuses on two types of building improvements, security enhancements, and also improved learning spaces. Now, I've been asked to prioritize those, and obviously security enhancements come first. We've got old buildings. We have to implement these security enhancements for the safety of our children, and that's the plan, to put additional cameras in, monitoring, access, lockdowns for the schools. And that's really just essential for next generation learning. But the second element of the plan is focused on improved learning spaces, and that's where the real educational benefit's going to be. You know, our box-like classrooms aren't really conducive to flexible teaching styles. And so what this improved learning spaces are going to do, we're going to keep our traditional classrooms, but we're going to have small and large spaces that are active learning places for different types of teaching styles. Some are going to be indoors, there'll be some outdoors. And I've seen the designs for the high school, and they're fabulous. So studies show that these active learning spaces improve educational output. So all these learning spaces are going to align clearly with my enhanced vision for the district. They're going to attract teachers to Edina. They're going to give kids space to move, and they're also going to create a learning environment that's on par with the best schools in the world. Maybe you've seen the movie, The Internship at Google. I've been to Google frequently. I can tell you they got an exciting campus, open working spaces, bicycles, walking trails, food options, culture of fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Leila Avila, please.
I think the key priority is the sort of the overarching principle of ensuring that all of the facilities align to the learning that's going to take place in them and sustain just as the current existing buildings and curriculum has sustained over the course of the last 40-plus years. This is accomplished by first figuring out what programmatic changes are needed for the district to move into the 21st century learning model first, and then creating the structure and the infrastructures that directly align with those programs and curriculum changes. This is no small task. It's years in the making, but the buildings as they exist are older than me. They look relatively the same as they did when I was a kid, and were built for a different type of learning. This is going to be a complete cultural and environmental shift that needs to be assessed carefully with a progressive and creative mindset so that when they're finally complete, we see the same longevity that we've seen in the existing structures and curriculum.
Okay, thank you. Kathy Stella.
When I ran for re-election 4 years ago, the prepared question asked of us at this forum was, what areas in Edina schools are ripe for innovation? And at that time, I started with a quote from KnowledgeWorks Foundation. The quote was, if you think that the future will require better schools, you're wrong. The future of education calls for entirely different learning environments. I stated then that we needed to start envisioning and creating those different learning environments. And I'm ecstatic that the community approved in May our capital bond referendum so that we can put in place one more piece and do exactly that. In a recent article about the evolution in office space, an architect was quoted as saying, "Space is a tool." And that hit home to me as a great way of describing what we're trying to do and what we need to do with our school buildings. Along with our outstanding staff and our high-quality curriculum and other programs, our learning spaces are one of our tools we have and one of the tools we need to use to ensure that all our learners reach their full potential. Our instructional spaces date from the 1950s, well actually the community center is 1948, the 60s and the early 1970s. Since then we know a lot more about the different ways students learn and the best ways to help them learn, and we know a lot more about the way that today's flexible learning spaces and furniture can support that learning. Our architects are working with a core planning team at each building that consists of staff, administration, parents, and when appropriate, students to design spaces that will work to advance our goal of personalized learning and provide spaces that can enhance and ignite different types of learners and learning. One more tool. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Patzloff.
Well, as you've heard, there were several priorities as part of the referendum. They included the terminology that we're using, next generation learning spaces, security improvements, which were important to the community, and infrastructure enhancements like play areas and possibly even a new bus garage. But this question was about priorities, and I believe the most important priority is those next generation learning spaces. And I realize that that term and talking about this is a bit of a lofty concept. And I look at that as we can kind of define that as basically creating spaces that not only offer that individual box that we've all been talking about where the teacher's at the front of the classroom lecturing the students. We need to redesign and build different kinds of spaces that can be supportive of all of our students and their varying learning styles. We know that our kids are going to need to learn to collaborate and connect with each other in different size groups from very small to large groups. Our children will not work and live in the spaces that we've lived in, and we need to allow them to be able to learn in those more flexible spaces. And very important, as we move into the design phase and continue into that, we need to ensure that the program and educational needs are what drives the design and not the other way around. And so as a board member who's been a part of this process from the beginning, I want to work to ensure that we ask the questions that need to be asked as we go through this process and ensure that it does stay a collaborative process with the community.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll move on to the questions submitted by the audience. And the first question is, the school district recently hired a Somali cultural liaison and a Hispanic cultural liaison. What else can the school district do to promote cultural awareness and equity? First responder is Kathy Sella.
There are several other things that the district can do and is doing. One of those things is training for all our staff, from our teachers down to our bus drivers, to be culturally responsive and understand the diversity of our student base, and we are doing that. Another thing that we can do is making sure that we have diverse faces in our district, from the administration down through the teachers and through our support staff. Another thing we're trying to do just in that same arena is ramp up the diversity of our volunteers so that even the volunteers in our school look like all of the children in our school. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Claudia Carr.
And I'm to address the same question?
Yes, same question.
All right, well, I would agree with much of what Kathy has said, in fact, all of it, and I think there's many opportunities for improvements. One which came to mind immediately was the training of teachers and staff. Another thing is just simple things, food choices in our cafeterias. People have different food choices depending on your background. We might try offering different food choices to make children more comfortable in the school environment. Language opportunities as well. So there's many different things we can do. I think training is the most important. But I think, again, having people go out to the homes. If we see difficulties, having representatives go to the homes and teach people more about the Edina school system, how it works. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Same question, Leila Avila.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. The school district recently hired a Somali cultural liaison and a Hispanic cultural liaison. What else can the school district do to promote cultural awareness and equity?
Well, I think in addition to what both Kathy and Claudia said, the training, the food options, there are ways to incorporate various cultures into the day-to-day curriculum. My once kindergartner, now second grader, during the Persian New Year, which is a springtime holiday, brought her and her friend, who's also Persian in the same class, brought the Persian New Year setting to school, had a presentation for all of the kids. A couple of other classrooms asked for the same presentation, just basically creating awareness that there is a world outside of where we live. There's a world outside of our schools and our great district that they need to be prepared for, you know, as a global citizen in the future.
Okay, thank you. Sarah Patzloff.
Actually, I've had a unique opportunity serving on the board for the last 2 years to be a part of the District Equity Advisory Council. And it's a group of citizens, staff, teachers that would get together on a monthly basis and talk about these issues. And I am thrilled this year when we went to the staff kickoff to have met these new people that we've added to our staff to help build that. We've also been working with Shiraki Holly, who's been working to teach our staff about culturally responsive teaching. And this is teaching that or training our staff to accept that everybody's culture is different and our students may act differently, but that doesn't mean that they are acting outside of the boundaries that should be acceptable. So we're constantly doing training, and that has been one, as Kathy and everybody has shared, one of the main things that we're focusing on. And having that opportunity to work with our staff on the District Equity Advisory Council was really helpful to me as well, because we've been able, as board, to share in those trainings too.
Okay, thank you. Lenny Wallen-Friedman.
I echo the comments made by Kathy and by the other members up here. The district has actually done a lot of work in this area. Mm-hmm. In terms of equity, you know, we've made sure that as we move into the e-learning squared initiative, that families all have computers. We take a look when we do field trips to make sure that there's funds available, and actually we're revisiting that issue to make sure that more and more families are invited to participate in activities, because we find that as they participate more, they get more excited, they grow more. The district also has engaged, and we're doing what we call IDI testing, which is to figure out what our cultural awareness is. That testing was done for the lead team. It was done at the school board level, which gives us a way to reflect upon what we're doing and whether we are doing it, in fact, in a culturally responsible way. And so we are taking those steps and finding new things through the IDI. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Amir Garbi.
Thank you. This question is particularly important to me. My father was an immigrant from Morocco, and I understand what it means to adjust. Also, my wife's family immigrated from Germany. And I can tell you what students want when they're adjusting to a new culture is the same opportunities to achieve as every other student. And sometimes that takes special accommodation. Sometimes there needs to be concern about food or other cultural concerns. For example, some cultures don't thrive under competition as much as we've traditionally seen in America, and cooperation becomes the norm. But I'll tell you, it's not just about groups of people, especially not just divided by race. What we need to focus on is what students need as individuals. And what that's going to come down to a lot of times is what their learning style is. And there's many learning styles in our district as there are students. So there are cultural concerns, and there are some things that our community is doing to help as well. Edina Give and Go does wonderful things for our students. But in a district, we need to be focused on personalized education and not just groups of students based off of race.
Okay, thank you. Our next question, this is a question for all of you. What do you think is the top issue facing the school district? And we will begin with Claudia Carr.
Well, I believe the top issue being faced by our school district is the achievement gap. And I say that just based on statistics I've looked at and also in talking to the director of teaching and learning at the school district. We pride ourselves on having a great school system, but we are getting many new students in who don't have the benefit of English as a first language, and achievement gap is still there. So I believe this is the top issue that we need to deal with. And I know we have a team of people in the district working on it currently, but I think we have to focus on that and never lose sight of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sarah Patzloff.
In my tenure on the board, one of the things that I continue to see as a huge issue for the district and all school districts is our financial responsibility and the fiscal challenges that we continue to face. The reality is that the way that we were funded was 70% plus of our funding coming from the state and then the rest from local levies and referendums. We are constantly seeing our costs grow faster than the money coming in. And it is a difficult challenge to face. We continue to peel off the lowest hanging fruit, those things that will not affect the classroom immediately. But those things are going to continue to run out, and we will be facing issues of having to talk about class sizes and staffing and how we manage that, because we want to continue to attract the best staff, but that costs a lot of money, and it's 85% of our budget. So we need to continue to look at how we negotiate our contracts, how we send our funds out, and how that affects our kids, because the bottom line is it has to be what's best for our students.
Okay, thank you. Kathy Seller.
Given, as we've been saying, that we're moving to the next generation of Edina schools, I think change is the biggest issue that we're facing and that we'll face over the next couple of years. As we say that we want learning to be the constant and everything else is a variable, time, talent, funds, and spaces, we're doing studies in just about every area, a secondary study, a birth to grade 5 study, counseling, gifted and talented, facilities, special ed, mental health and wellness, community education. We finish one and we think of some other issue that feeds into everything else, and we have to study it. But when we make changes to everything and when we're looking to do a new way of everything, that means a lot of change, and change is hard. It's always hard. And we need to find ways to help everyone, our staff, our community, our students, to be ready for and embrace those changes and to see it as a positive. And we need to realize that not everyone is going to be able to move along as fast as other people, so we're going to need to continue to do pilots, gather data, report back on our results, so that people can see that we're moving in the right direction and feel comfortable where we're going. Thank you.
Thank you. Lenny Wallen-Friedman.
So the biggest issue that we face is actually designing the programs that will drive our facilities. We talked about the facilities, 125 million. If we do it the right way, we will be able to build facilities that will enable us to run programs that will work on items like the achievement gap. It will work on items like gifted and talented. It will work on each of the academic issues that we view as primary issues. It's interesting, you should attend a work session. We have 6 balls that are always in play, and those are the 6 key issues or 10 key issues that we're focusing on. But when it really comes down to it, it's driving programming that drive facilities that will then enable all of our students to succeed. We want to be able to elevate the level of competence of everybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Amir Garbi.
My top priority is our students, not the facilities, not a strategic plan, and so therefore our top issue will always be maintaining excellence for our students. And everything else that we're doing is helping raise that goal up. Sometimes it's focusing on resources, sometimes it's focusing on finding the best teachers and doing what we can to maintain their working here in the district, because we've heard that there is competition for the best teachers. Now, there are a lot of ways to go about that, but 2 things that have to be a constant are the mantras that every child can learn, and the American dream is for every student. From there, personalized learning and empowering teachers to use their judgment and giving them the leeway they need to do what it takes to build relationships with our students. I can tell you, as a teacher candidate myself, I plan to do what it takes to teach students. I could teach them inside or outside. I could teach them with technology or without technology. But what I'm going to need is a little leeway from the board and from the district to empower not those levels, but teachers themselves, and then hold teachers accountable for results.
Okay, thank you. Leila Avila.
Implementing the strategic plan through the next generation learning model and deploying the training, the facilities, the curriculum to make that model successful. It's going to be a major quantum shift in education in Edina, and I think that is the biggest issue.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is a multi-part question. What can the district do to recruit and retain good teachers? And should Edina be looking to hire Teach for America teachers? Why or why not? We will begin with Leila Avila. Should Edina be looking to hire Teach for America teachers? Why or why not?
Well, I think first of all, recruiting and retaining good teachers is not as difficult as it seems in the district that we're in. I think often we are able to attract the best and the brightest of all of the teachers. I think actively recruiting, making sure that training standards are up to par, making sure that we are retaining all of those standards in order to keep up the standard of excellence that we've had for many years. That's my response.
Your response, okay. Thank you. Kathy Sella.
I think that our strategic vision is attractive to teachers, and I think people are attracted to come here. But we need to make sure that we are not just sitting on our laurels and waiting for people to come and say, you're doing a cool thing, we want to work here. We need to be actively recruiting and make sure that we use all avenues to attract new teachers and attract teachers that are diverse and reflect all the children in our school district. So we need to take all the necessary steps to do that. And that's often very difficult, particularly in Minnesota. As for Teach for America teachers, I think the vibrancy and the excitement that they bring to a classroom is wonderful. I would have to study it and talk to experts who know more about it to see how we could best use them in our classrooms.
Okay, thank you. Amir Garbi.
Thank you. And again, as a teacher candidate, it echoes some of what I said before about empowering and trusting teachers. And I would also add that we need to focus on ways of recognizing who our best teachers are. And it's not the two metrics that we use to decide how much to pay a teacher, how long they've been around, and whether or not they have a master's in education. Believe it or not, and research has shown this time and again, a master's of education doesn't correlate to higher scores for students or better student outcomes. So we need to find out how we're going to tie what we're doing to reward teachers to what actually helps our students so that we incentivize the best teachers to come here and stay here. TFA, Teach for America, is a great organization, but frankly, we're not the schools they're trying to serve. They're trying to serve areas that are urban and rural. They're really trying to make a difference in the achievement gap. And I would just say that what we should be doing is trying to find great people from our community and encouraging them to consider teaching as a second career, as a first career, and that gets to our advocacy role, because it's very difficult for someone to change careers in Minnesota or even come from one of the other 49 states to teach here.
Okay, thank you. Sarah Patzloff.
I would agree that I think teaching in Edina in and of itself is attractive. We are a good school district. We have kids that care. We have parents that care. And I think that adds to the element of teaching here. But we also have our challenges. And we need to continue to support our teachers. One of the things that I've seen that has been so successful for our teachers is their PLCs, where they're working together in their cohorts with other teachers to examine student results, to say, hey, this worked in my classroom. Do you have any ideas for this thing that I'm doing where I'm having challenges? We need to continue to support our teachers to work collaboratively, because that's what we're asking our kids to do too. As for Teach for America, I would agree with Amir. we're not necessarily the school district that needs to attract them. I do happen to have a niece who is doing that out on the East Coast right now, and it has been an incredible program for her and an extremely challenging teaching situation for her. Kids who come to school whose basic needs haven't been met, and she needs to teach them. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Claudia Carr.
Well, I think the reputation of our school district is what attracts teachers. So I think recruiting teachers is not that difficult, although you always have to make sure you're promoting yourself. The difficulty is retaining teachers. We have a lot of good school systems in the state of Minnesota, Mahtomedi, Minnetonka. There's many school systems that the teachers can go to, so why do they stay here? This goes back to my vision. You've got to invest in the teachers, and that includes incentives for the teachers. It includes giving them the tools they need to teach, respect for the teachers, listening to their feedback, many different things, and recognition and incentives. So this is what we need to do to retain our teachers. The Teachers for America, I think I would explore that opportunity and see if we can add some value to our school district. There may be a learning opportunity for us to explore hiring from that teaching pool. Thank you.
Larry Wallen-Friedman.
Lenny Wallen-Friedman.
Lenny, excuse me. I told you I'd do that.
That's okay. So we recruit excellent teachers, and we have excellent teachers. One of the things I think that's important is to maintain a solid relationship with the teachers. So for example, the school board meets twice a year with the teachers, with a teacher group. And these are sessions where we can talk collaboratively about what's happening in the district, what's working, what isn't. If we maintain a good relationship with the teachers, everyone out there will know that. They'll know that this is a good place. We want to create an environment where we support the teachers, where people who are looking for work say, hey, if I want to get support, if I want to be able to teach, that's the place to go. We want to support our student body, because if we have a good student body, that's going to draw teachers in. We want to also show appreciation for the teachers. Sometimes we forget to say thank you to our teachers. And finally, as the Teach for America, those are issues we can look at. I would go to the department, the teaching and learning head, and look for an analysis from that area and go from that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now it's time for the lightning round questions. Each candidate will be asked a different question, which I will draw at random. Candidates, please answer your question in one sentence. This is a test. We will begin with Sarah Patzloff, and the question is it a good idea for the school district to consider private sponsorships of school facilities such as Coleman Field as a way to raise revenue for the schools? Why or why not?
You are asking somebody who worked in advertising for 12 years. If we can do it responsibly and correctly, I think that we do need to look at other sources of revenue. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question goes to Claudia Carr, and it is, name an educational weakness or gap in the school district.
Well, I hate to repeat myself, but I think it's the achievement gap. And again, if you look at the statistics, we don't have a perfect record. I think we can improve on that. And this is something that we have a moral responsibility to deal with. Dealing with the achievement gap, making sure that all learners are, excuse me, one sentence, I apologize.
Thank you. The next question will go to Lenny Wallen-Friedman. Should student test scores affect teacher salaries? Please give us a reason with your response.
So I think that we want to include how the students perform in terms of how we're looking at our school system as a whole.
Okay, thank you. Next question goes to Leila Avila. What is your feeling about term limits for school board members?
I feel that school board members, as a school board, term limits should definitely be looked at
Okay.
as an option.
The next question to Amir Garbi. Where do you stand on the issue of having school start before Labor Day?
Summer is for families and adventure. Just as we've known for years, Labor Day weekends were canceled this year, and that concerns me.
Okay. And the last lightning round question for Kathy Sella. At school board meetings, there is one opportunity near the beginning of the meeting for members of the public to address the board. How would you feel about offering the public more chances to speak during the meeting?
I think we have to realize that speaking at a school board meeting is just one way to get your views in front of the school board. People write us, they email us, they talk to us in the grocery store. There are many opportunities with all our committees, our task force, our surveys to give us input.
Thank you. A run-on sentence.
I'm a lawyer.
We'll move on to the next question from the audience, and this one, what are your ideas for engaging Edina's large population with no kids in the schools? Lenny Welland-Friedman.
So this is a great area because we have people that live in Edina that are professionals, that are diverse, and we have programs to try to bring them into the schools, but we need to work harder on that. We need to tap that resource because we can get all those people who I believe still are excited about education. They can come into the schools, they can show kids where you could go to. They can add an extra dimension. Maybe it's a physics professor who comes in and gives a guest lecture. Maybe it's a surgeon that comes in and gives a guest lecture. We absolutely want to tap into that resource. And by the way, we do have programs in place that do tap into that resource. We just want to keep facilitating it.
Okay, thank you. Leila Avila.
I think as a district, we need to continue to work to engage our residents who don't have children in the school district through community ed, access to the facilities, mentoring, volunteerism, in many instances, because we have a high senior population here in Edina, we need to be able to use the wisdom that they have and try to sort of draw from all of that experience.
Okay, thank you. Kathy Sella.
We're very lucky in Edina that of our residents who don't have kids currently in the school, surveys usually show that like close to 55% of them have some connection to our schools. They either have kids or grandkids or they take a class through community education. So we're very lucky that our population feels connected to our community, and we offer many programs through community education. And I hope that, when I'm 70, I'm taking the yoga classes that I see when I'm driving into the community center parking lot, everybody with their mats early in the morning. And we have many of our community members who do volunteer in our schools. And if you attend any one of our volunteer appreciation events in the spring, you will see just an amazing range of ages and skills. They're sharing knowledge with our students every day. At all levels. And I think we need to find ways to continue to foster that involvement. There are teachers at every level and students at every level who could always use another community member as a mentor, as somebody who's got their back, and we just have to figure out how to get more people in the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you. Amir Garbi.
Thank you. While I agree that our volunteers add a whole nother dimension to our educational experience for our students, I think the point of the question is how we get the whole community feel engaged with our schools, even if it's outside of the volunteer role. And I'll tell you, Edina's community engagement with our schools is our greatest asset. It's our seniors who best remember some of the experiments from the 70s with schools that failed. Open concept, let's just get rid of walls. It's more than finding someone to read a book once a week. We need people to help us guide our schools forward for decades to come. And that includes people who are younger and don't have kids, people who have kids and choose to put them into a private school for whatever reason. We need them to care about Edina Public Schools. And right now we have most people. Our schools are the pride of our community. We need to work to maintain that relationship. And to some extent, we need to work to rebuild some of the trust about what our plans are for where money goes and make sure that excellence for students guides all we do.
Okay, thank you. Sarah Patzloff.
Well, I echo what everybody has said. The depth and wealth of opportunity that we have in our community is immense. And I've seen that so many times. And one of the things that I like to think about, besides the volunteering and all that, which absolutely we are always looking for volunteers, is all the things that our community can attend that our children are doing. Sports, plays, concerts, music. I mean, it is endless. And we encourage the community to be a part of that. And another thing that I'm a huge fan of is community education. I like to describe it as the hug around the school system. It's our birth to pre-K, and then it's everybody after high school, all the programs that we offer, and this connects our community back to our school district. Every survey that cities do will show that people who participate in community education at any level feel more connected to their community and to their schools and to their neighbors. So I think we have a great opportunity to continue to engage our community.
Okay. Claudia Carr.
We know our educational mandate really starts at birth and goes all the way to our senior citizens. And we want to engage everyone in our community in our educational process. So how do we get the people without children to get engaged in that process? Well, the first step is great communication. And we're doing that for our community ed programs, but we need to actually get in touch with those groups of people that do not have children and get them engaged, whether it's through attending classes, whether it's through volunteering, and basically utilizing their skills to contribute. We need to convince everyone that our school system is critical to the success of our entire city and community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next question, how important is improving school security? What ideas do you have to improve security? Sarah Patzloff.
Well, as I stated previously, this was actually one of the priorities in our school referendum. And I am not an expert in security. And this is where I say we look to the experts to help us. We, as a world, have seen the devastation that can happen in a school in moments. We have not had that here. We don't want that here. But we also need to be realistic that we live in a world where we can't predict everything, but we can look to the experts to help us build a better security system. But at the same time, I never want us to feel like our schools are not open places for our children and their families to come and feel free to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Leila Avila.
I would echo what Sarah mentioned, is that security is obviously of the utmost importance. It was one of the main issues in the referendum. It's in terms of ideas, I would also look to the experts. There are issues related to potential, danger issues, and then there's sort of the day-to-day issues of people sort of coming into the schools, volunteering, et cetera. It seems as though signing in and being able to walk into the school is probably not enough in this day and age, and then also having the experts train all of the staff, all of the relevant staff and personnel in the schools to make sure that, if there is any sort of a crisis, everyone can handle it calmly.
Okay, thank you. Claudia Carr.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, there's plans in place to remodel our schools to make sure there's more security cameras, advanced technologies for lockdowns, more secure entrances. But personally, I will say this, in going into our schools, I don't feel like there is adequate security. I feel like it can come and go through the schools without necessarily feeling comfortable that there's adequate security in there. And I always wonder if somebody could easily get into the schools. So I'm glad we're focusing on this. We need to talk to the experts. There's other approaches you can take. You could put safety film on the glass. You can train your teachers. You can work with the police. You can have drills. And I imagine all these things are being examined by the groups that are looking at this. But obviously it's of utmost importance, and the security of children is the #1 priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Lenny Wallen-Friedman.
This was actually something that I mentioned in what are the important things to do with the facilities. One of the things I said was security. It has been highlighted within the referendum, It is something that we're planning for. I mean, even the most simple thing, which is a controlled access to the school. So if you have 6 doors to the school, 5 of them are locked, the 6th one becomes the front entryway, and it's a controlled access. And the high school plan includes exactly that. So in terms of more in-depth security, again, I would agree with Sarah, which is I would be looking for experts to give us guidance on how to improve security, but it is absolutely something that we need to focus on.
Thank you. Amir Garbi.
Thank you. There's nothing more important than the safety of our children. And we have 8% of this last referendum earmarked for security improvements. And some of those should include electronic locks on doors and better procedures. But I'll tell you, some of our resources are already in place. The staff members who work our school every day and are in the hallways while classes are in session, the secretaries at the front door. You know, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of great things being done all around the country, and our university has studied many of them. Just like we look to them for other ideas. I think it's not the role of this board to try to go it alone. It's the role of this board to find the best practices that are being done all around the country and bring them into Edina. And we won't look like some of the schools I saw in Afghanistan with soldiers and police all around them, but we also can't let this slide. And we need timetables and measurable results. We need to have these results published in the paper so everybody in the community knows that our schools are safe and your children are safe with us.
Thank you. Kathy Sella.
As has been mentioned by several of the other candidates, this was one of the priorities of our May referendum. And we will be making safety and security upgrades to all our schools. The most important thing that we're doing at all schools is, as Lenny mentioned, making sure that the front entrance for every school directs visitors through an office, and they can't just wander in. And that's just not the case at all our schools right now. We also have security experts who are going to be advising us on other enhancements that we need to make, because as board members, we're not experts in that field. We want to use the best practices to make sure that our students are safe. We also have background checks and training for all our volunteers so that we know that the people who aren't staff that we're bringing into the buildings are also safe to be in the buildings. But as Sarah said, we also have to remember that these are school environments, and it's important that not only do our students feel safe, but they feel welcome and they feel that they belong. And so we need to balance those interests. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is this our last question? No? Okay. Our next question, please give us your thoughts about the amount of standardized testing in elementary and middle schools. Leila Avila.
The amount of standardized testing?
That's what the question says, about the amount of standardized testing in elementary and middle schools.
I have 3 elementary schoolers. It seems as though they are subject to what I would personally deem to be a normal amount of standardized testing. I don't necessarily think that it seems excessive. It seems as though fall and spring are typically when the testing takes place. I'm not exactly sure whether at their young age the results really have much bearing on what they're actually learning in the school, but I don't necessarily think that the amount is excessive.
Okay, thank you. Amir Garbi.
Thank you. Well, there are some things that are outside of our direct control, what the state's requiring and kind of the federal push, and that's where our advocacy comes in, trying to protect our students, to provide excellence for them, because one size won't fit all. And a lot of these pushes are going to address larger problems outside of our district, and we're sort of caught in the big waves that are across this lake, even though it may not be what provides excellence for our students. But I will tell you, some of these tests would be useful for teachers, and that's where they're important. If they're providing feedback, what has a student learned? Where are students not learning? How do we adjust to provide excellence for students? You know, when I'm a teacher, the standardized tests that are going to really affect what I'm teaching are the AP tests. And the SATs really start to affect other high school teachers, because you want your students to be able to get college credit for your class. It helps impact this tuition problem, and it helps show them that this is a test that they, a subject, in my case physics, that they can do well in, and it's an option for them. So overall, we need to make sure that our tests are useful, and if we can advocate that they stop, that we do that.
Okay, thank you. Sarah Patzloff.
A couple things here that I've seen with my own kids that does worry me a little bit about some of our standardized testing is the pressure that I see it putting on our staff and our students. When these standardized tests are coming, not the tests that our teachers are giving after they've taught a unit to our students to see how well they've learned that unit, but the tests that are mandated by the state, our teachers feel the stress and are sending that stress down to our kids by saying, make sure you eat a good breakfast, make sure you get a good sleep tonight. And these are the things that my elementary age students are coming home and telling me that their teachers have shared with them. This is not the kind of pressure that we should be putting our kids in elementary school, or the kind of pressure that our teachers should be feeling that these kids have to perform on this test. As we've said, with All for All, not all kids perform well in that type of test environment. And we need to make sure through personalized learning that we're testing our kids so that we do get results and make sure that we're teaching them correctly, but not necessarily through the traditional standardized testing.
Thank you. Kathy Sella.
This is a hot button issue that people discuss, but a lot of the tests that we give are mandated by state or federal law, so our hands are tied to some respect. But as I mentioned before, as we are doing studies in so many of our different areas, another study that we're going to be undertaking is looking at the next generation of assessments in Edina Public Schools, because it goes along with everything else that we're looking at to improve our learning and have the next generation of learning. So we'll be looking at what we value in what we're teaching and what we need to measure. We will be looking at the current assessments we use are based on the traditional model. And so we will be looking at that, what we're doing now, but what we need to do differently in the assessment world to match what we're going to be doing differently in our next generation of learning.
Thank you. Claudia Carr.
Well, there are a lot of tests, but as everyone said here, they're mandated. So we don't have a choice on that. But what I think is important is that we don't teach just for tests. We teach to teach the children. We want our children to learn and enjoy learning. So we don't want to, first of all, freak out the kids with the testing. And so we don't want to stress out our kids. I have twins. I never tell them what their test results are. I keep that to myself. That's a learning tool for them, a learning tool for the teacher in actually taking the test and getting the feedback. And we don't want the parents freaked out either. I mean, has anyone ever applied for a job and did they ask you what you got for a test in grade school? No. So what is the purpose of the test? It's to help us get some feedback, but I think we have to use it judiciously and not put stress on teachers or parents, and communicate the purpose of those tests. Thank you.
Thank you. Lenny Wallen-Friedman.
So Kathy is correct that one of the things we did recently is have someone within the district begin an assessment of the testing that we're doing to make sure that it has a purpose and that it's meeting that purpose. Now, the other thing you have to understand, of course, these are state mandated, but you have certain tests, the MCA, that tells you where your child is in terms of performing at grade level. You've got maps that tell you whether your child is growing at the correct rate or whether we're not meeting the needs of those students. So the testing is important because it gives feedback to the teacher as to where the students are at. Now, we are developing our own set of standards. We're developing formative and summative assessments that will tell us where the students are on a day-to-day basis or a weekly basis in terms of meeting the standards. Hopefully we can get to the point where our own standards will replace the state standards. Then we just need to make sure that we're achieving adequate growth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next question. Part of a school board member's job is writing and approving policies that govern the school district. What policy areas are a priority for you? Amar Garbi.
Thank you. Excellence for students guides everything that I think about for schools. And so some of those policies will go to teacher evaluations, some to student test results, and we're looking at what they're learning. I don't think the district needs to pile on the testing bandwagon, but we need to make sure that we have a policy in place to capture the data that the students are providing through all of their hours of testing. Another thing that's important for excellence for students is making sure that they have the resources they need. And some of those are spaces, and some of those are the great teachers. We need to make sure we identify who they are and what it takes to keep them here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Lenny Wallen-Friedman.
So I'm not on the policy committee, but the things that we're working on in terms of policies are policies to make sure that we are providing an equitable education to our students, equitable opportunity. We're working on policies that deal with partnerships, because partnerships will enable us to enhance where we are at. The other thing I'd like to point out is that while the board does policy, that's only a small or a portion of what we do. We review what the district provides us in terms of recommendations, and I think that that review is as important as developing policies. Our policies have been in place for years. They've been reviewed time after time, and they're good policies. Thank you.
Thank you. Claudia Carr.
Well, I know we have a lot of policies, and I have not had a chance to read the, 300 plus policies of the school. There's a lot of them. And the function of the board is to review those policies when they come up for revision. And I think the policies and where we go with those are somewhat guided by what the vision is of the board. So if the vision of the board were to, again, focus on physical activity, let's say, okay, we need more physical activity in our classrooms, perhaps we could have a policy directed at that, requiring that physical movement be introduced into classrooms, or that physical activity breaks be offered to students. So again, there's a set of policies already in place, and I think the vision of the board can guide those policies and enhance those policies. Thank you.
Thank you. Leila Avila.
So through my professional experiences, I do have extensive experience in reviewing and implementing policy. And so I think as a priority, it's sort of looking around to see where you're at. And I think with this whole next generation learning and all of the changes, the immense changes that I foresee that will take place within the school district and decisions for the board to make in the next few years, I think the main focus will be policying around all of these new, this new environment and this new culture.
Thank you. Kathy Sella.
Well, I have been on the policy committee off and on for most of the 8 years that I've been on the board. And in that time, we've done a major overhaul of our policies. Some of them, when I got on the board, were back from the 70s, back when I was at the old Edina High School, which was a scary thought. And so we've done that overhaul, and we're now working on what I would consider cutting-edge issues in policies that other districts don't have, that we're sort of inventing from the ground up or rethinking the policies that we already have. Some of them that we're currently working on that I think are important are, as Lenny mentioned, partnerships. How do we work with other people in the community and other organizations to leverage their assets and our expertise to provide what we need for our students? How do we provide access to all our students, to all our programs? That includes just making sure that everybody's aware of opportunities and they have the funding. How do we give credit to our students for learning that they're doing outside the classroom, since we're now saying that learning is anytime, anywhere? And then as we have a global competency and we talk about that, how do we manage international travel for our students? Let them have those opportunities, but make sure they're safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Patzloff.
Of course, I had to go last and after Kathy, who has served on policy forever and has a legal background. I have not been on the policy committee in my 4 years of service, but I am always diligent. When the policies come in our board packet, which they do, we review them and read them. They've been marked up, and I always am asking questions about how is this going to reflect on our students. One of the policies that Kathy kind of alluded to that we talked about in one of our most recent work sessions, and also while we were focusing on equity, was around field trips. And we have some incredible opportunities, say for band or choir or orchestra, where they go overseas in high school and they do a week-long trip where they're traveling to different places. But we need to re-examine these policies as we put these trips together. They're extremely expensive, and for different cultures, they may not always be appropriate for those students. So these are the type of policies that we're addressing as a whole, as a board. And overall, I think one of the other policies that really, oh, sorry. Thank you.
Okay, next question. What are your thoughts on the pilot program at Normandale Concord regarding guided play on playgrounds? Kathy Sellon.
The pilot program that we have going on at Normandale and Concord about helping guide recess is exactly that. It is a pilot program that was put in place after thought and study as to what is best needed for our students at recess, making sure that everyone's included and everyone has an opportunity to be active, but also to feel included. It's a pilot program that was put in place with procedures already built into that program to assess and evaluate and reevaluate it as it moves on, to ask for input from students, staff, and parents, and the people running the program, which we will be doing for the next several weeks and several months. And I'm looking forward to hearing what the results are of that pilot. And then once we know how the pilot's working, we can know whether we want to go forward. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Claudia Carr.
Well, I have a student at Normandale. I've heard a few stories about recess. In fact, that's most of the stories I hear about are what happened at recess. And, there might be a little bit of pushing and shoving there. The drama goes on at recess. But I think that the guided play on playgrounds is a good idea. I'll be very interested in hearing about the results of that pilot. I think that guided play is very conducive to teamwork on behalf of the children. They learn to team together. It also is very inclusive so that everyone is included. So I definitely will be interested in hearing about the results of that. It sounds like a good approach. We just need to wait for the results. Thank you.
Thank you. Leila Avila.
I think the pilot program is all new to me, but it's definitely a hot button issue amongst the elementary school parents these days. I think that it's important to keep perspective about what it is. In fact, it is a pilot. And it is being implemented to gather information and data to see whether individual children's recess experience can be improved. However, I do think that the communication plan relative to, the administration students was maybe had some room for improvement. As it seems, I think that feedback should be solicited from everybody, the students, the teachers, as well as the parents, who have a very vested interest in having their children enjoy recess, as they traditionally have.
Thank you. Sarah Patzloff.
Interestingly enough, this actually made the news this evening at 6 o'clock on Channel 11. And it was a well-done story in that we had a parent representative of the families and their feelings and the district sharing their feelings. This, to me, is a classic example of governance versus management. We received information about this pilot, but at a very high level in a large packet around the community. Whoops, sorry about that. We received this information at a very high level in one of our presentation packets around the community education's review process that we're going through. We did not have the details around the pilot specifically because that's management. But this is also an example of what I take pride in my job as a school board member is my ability to listen. I have had many phone calls on this issue because I happen to be the school board liaison to Concord Elementary where this pilot is happening, and my ability to try to help foster connections and help these people to work with the district through this change. Sorry to not be able to finish.
No, thank you. Lenny Wallen-Friedman.
So this is by definition a pilot. In other words, it's a proposal that was made, it was reviewed, and it was put into place so that we could determine if this was a better fit for our kids than what was previously done at those playgrounds. So it's been in play now for only since the beginning of this school year. This is the first time. So from my perspective, we need to let it, no pun intended, play out, see how it works, and evaluate it. If it doesn't work, the district will not pursue it. If it does work, we will continue.
Okay, thank you. Amir. Garvey.
Thank you. And this is exactly why we need more community involvement. And for those of you who aren't even aware of what this pilot program is, it's heavily structured play on the playground. Now, it was initially sold to be optional if kids want. There are different games. We're going to have kickball today. We're going to have soccer today. And that actually sounds like a lot of fun. We shouldn't wait for a brave student to say, hey, guys, I've got an idea. Why don't you put me up and see if you want to come play with me or just embarrass me and walk away. But what I've heard from parents in Concord, the subject line was they're ending recess as we know it. It's all structured. No more playtime. Now, I was very concerned, and I spent some time today at Normandale watching what they were doing, and it wasn't that. And I think that's where the board should be coming in, not feeling defensive and saying this is a pilot program and we'll look at it in a year, but listening to the community. You know, the superintendent works for the school board, and the school board works for the community, which means we need to be able to go to the school and watch the program that parents are so frustrated about. I'm not surprised that the parents at Concord are feeling frustrated. I'm surprised that there isn't more interest on this board.
Okay, thank you. This will be our last question. As a board member, what would you do to make classrooms more interactive? Claudia Carr.
Well, I hate to sound like a broken record, but one thing I would emphasize is the physical activity. Again, you know, my son, who's very active, does not get enough exercise every day. And there's a lot of alliances that are national in nature that are trying to encourage movement in classrooms. And I think that when we say interactive, I'm focusing on the active portion of that word, and I think that we have to make our classrooms active. For example, we have volunteer opportunities during the lunch breaks. You can do art adventures, you can take great books. Why don't we give kids the option of taking a physical activity break, play a Wii game, jump up and down, go outside, do something for even just 20 minutes to get oxygen to their brain. So that's what I envision for an interactive classroom. Thank you.
Okay, Sarah Patzloff.
I see interactivity as a change in the way that we grew up going to school, where I sat in my chair, I listened to the teacher, I then repeated what I was taught on a test later. What I see as interactivity is not constantly expecting the teacher to be asking the questions, but for our kids to be asking the questions as well. For them to be personally motivated through personalized learning, which is one of our goals, so that they want to learn, so that they feel motivated to learn about the things that interest them, to help them as they continue to grow as students and grow, hopefully, in a future career someday. We see this through offering flexibility in the classroom, for allowing our kids who need a different pathway in that particular class to be able to have that option and not be limited to the one way that we think is going to be best for all, but allowing our kids to be able to drive their learning so that they learn their passions.
Okay, thank you. Kathy Sella.
We have lots of tools at our disposal as a district to make our classrooms more engaging. We have highly qualified teachers who present engaging lessons. We have spaces, and we're hoping to have new spaces and furniture that allow kids to work together. We have technology that will allow kids to connect to outside resources. But we want this all to be in a framework that is personalized for each student, so that they have, as our director of teaching and learning likes to say, a choice and a voice in their learning. And if we can give all our students a choice and a voice, they will be engaged.
Okay, thank you. Lenny Wallen-Friedman.
So our current plans do involve having more physical activity in the classroom. So in terms of making the classroom more interactive, we're going to have a more physically active room. I look at interactive more, though, in terms of interaction between the teacher, the student. And so, for example, I go back to the flipped classroom, where the students are watching lectures online and coming to the classroom and then engaging in discussions with the teacher. They've already heard the lecture, and now they're using their class time to engage in an interactive activity with their teacher. We have students who, through the use of Moodle and their own devices, are working collaboratively on projects. That's interactive. We need to continue to push those areas and continue to work with the students in terms of what is their best way to learn and utilize that within our classrooms.
Okay, thank you. Amir Garbi.
And this is one of the most exciting things about becoming a teacher. There are so many things changing in education right now. Flipped classrooms, where students watch a video and learn a little bit about the subject at night before the class, and then in the day, they're doing their homework and doing their assignments, not with mom and dad trying to figure out what is this Latin, but with their teacher and with their peers right next to them. And there are other resources. Technology is fabulous, never to replace a teacher. We're not trying to save money by ever doing that, but to enhance what a teacher is doing. There are other options too. Physics, for example, used to be a lot of applied math. We would show you how math can explain some things in the world, do a lab to sort of say, see, I told you, and then test them on the math again. And now it's much more focused on discovery and inquiry. But I'll tell you, this is where the difference between governance and management comes in. It's not our place to flip a classroom. It's our place to incentivize teachers to get results, to resource them, and then to follow up. And you know what teachers need? Professional development where they can talk to teachers from outside of our district and say, what has worked for you guys? What are you doing now to teach chemistry? Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Leila Avila.
I think I'm going to go back again to the next generation learning spaces are going to play a key role in interactivity in the classroom, the flexible sort of modular furniture, the small spaces. Even now, you know, when my children were first enrolling in kindergarten and I walked into one of the classrooms, I was thinking, well, where are the desks? There are no desks anywhere. We've already sort of started to move toward that kind of more interactive setting with the small tables and the collaboration that takes place. And then I think also the very careful use of technology and introducing more and more technology very carefully, you know, re-looking at it, you know, to make sure that kids are still safe. But those are the things that would make the classroom more interactive.
All right, thank you. We'll now hear from the candidates with their closing statements, and we will begin with Claudia Carr.
Well, I'm running to enhance our vision by focusing on the 3 issues I've mentioned tonight: investing in our teachers, promoting physical activity, and rigorously comparing our students to the best schools in the world. And as a parent of 2 children, I'm very proud to be part of the Edina school system, and the teachers are fabulous, and I'm going to drive to make that even better. If I'm elected, I'll collaborate closely with the board, with staff, with teachers, and the city. But I'll also closely examine every program that's presented. I'll demand metrics to make sure that we achieve those that align, and again, that are in line with my vision. And I'll ask for feedback from you. You're in the trenches, you see the school system every day, and my leadership experience is going to make this happen. I'm vice chair of the Planning Commission, City of Edina. I'm on a board of a national nonprofit. I was past chair of the Edina Heritage Preservation Board. So please cast a vote for me. See me on Facebook, Claudia Carr, for Edina School Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Leila Avila.
Well, again, I'd like to thank to the League for hosting this event and everyone for attending. This is an amazing community. I've had the privilege to be raised here, and now I have the added privilege of raising my own children here. I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to pay back to the district using my professional experience in governance, policy, commercial contracting. I already serve on a board that is a company that has a startup application. So I'm well-versed in technology. And then my personal experiences of being raised in this community, but in a bicultural, bilingual environment, I can offer a lot of perspectives on being introduced into a global society and preparing our kids to be introduced as such.
Thank you. Kathy Sella.
Thank you, League of Women Voters, for sponsoring this forum tonight. It was a good opportunity to discuss the educational issues that are important to our Edina community. I care very deeply about the Edina schools, and I think you can tell from the amount of time I've spent on school issues and committees over the last 26 years that I don't say that lightly. I put my time where my priorities are, and the Edina schools are one of my top priorities. My years of practicing law and serving on nonprofit boards give me strong experience in the skills a school board needs: financial management, developing and refining policies, strategic planning, and the ability to work collaboratively with groups with divergent views. As a current school board member, I also have 8 years of hands-on experience and involvement with our school's issues and challenges, especially in the nitty-gritty areas of policy and finance. My deep ties to the community, my professional skills, and my active participation in our district for the last 26 years allow me to bring a unique perspective to our school board. That perspective will help our district meet the challenges for the next 4 years as we continue to implement our strategic vision for the next generation of Edina schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Lenny Wallen-Friedman.
Thank you, everyone, for coming and listening. I told you when this night began that I have the passion, expertise, commitment, and experience to serve on the school board. My passion for education was formed by my mother, who was a teacher. It grew when I went to museums and I saw child after child running around playing and learning, even though they didn't know they were learning. Our district's goal is to capture the excitement that those kids show in a museum and start them on a lifetime of learning. I want to be part of that mission. I have the expertise. My years as an attorney have given me the ability to analyze and make constructive comments. I have experience. I've served for the past 4 years on the school board. During that time, I've challenged the district, provided constructive input, and helped facilitate the advancement. I ask a lot of questions. Some may say too many questions, but those questions advance our admission. I've shown my commitment by volunteering within the community for the last 15 years. I would ask for your vote on November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Amir Garbi.
I'm incredibly thankful for the opportunities I've been given, and a lot of that comes from the public schools. I was also blessed to have a mother who was an angel and to have coaches and mentors from the Boy Scouts and all these other organizations throughout my youth, but the teachers were a constant. And I think excellence for students is something that we owe every student, as well as a couple of core beliefs. And again, those are that every student can learn, and the American dream is for every student. Now, there are ways to get there. There are policies that'll make it more fast and efficient and just wonderful. You know, school should be fun. It should be a fun, safe place for kids to be. And if you elect me to serve on the board, my top priority will be doing everything we can to provide excellence for students, using your resources wisely, both the dollars and the people we've entrusted, and listening to the community. It's actually been one of the great pleasures of running for this office. I've talked with dozens of parents and teachers and residents, and I've been so energized by what they have to say. And in fact, I would challenge you tonight, go to amirgarbi.com and ask me a question or give me another thought. I have reached out to everyone who's reached out to me, and I'll do it for you.
Thank you. Sarah Patzloff.
Well, thank you again to the League for sponsoring this event, but also to all of you for taking time to be here on what is a gorgeous night. I am a product of public education, from primary through university, and I know I benefited from that education. And now I watch with great joy as my kids learn and grow in the Edina public school system, and I'm thankful for that. But I also know that we need to continue to help the system grow and change, and that's not going to be easy. It has been, with all sincerity, a true pleasure and an honor to serve on the Edina School Board the last 4 years, and I take this role very seriously. As a board member, we are asked to vote on important issues that will affect the education of our children, and I feel that it is absolutely my responsibility to be sure that I understand the issues at hand and ask the questions that need to be answered. I know my experience on the board, my involvement in the schools, and my dedication to my constituents will continue to serve you well. I am committed, I will listen, and I will be the voice that represents you on the school board. And I ask for your vote on November 3rd. Thank you.
Okay. Before we close, I'd like to correct some information that was given to you earlier. The Morningside Forum will be from 3 to 4 p.m. on October 11th. Earlier, the incorrect time was given. So it's 3 to 4 p.m. on October 11th. So that concludes our forum for this evening. I would like to thank the candidates for their participation and for their willingness to participate in the democratic process by running for office. Thank you all for that. I'd also like to thank the League of Women Voters of Edina for sponsoring this forum. This forum has been taped for broadcast on Edina Community Channel 16 and available from the League's website at www.lwvedina.org. The forum will also be available for viewing on the internet through the City of Edina, www.edinamn.gov. Thank you all for attending this forum this evening, and remember to vote on Tuesday, November 3rd. Good evening.